Greetings, happy warriors, and thank you for being part of the Rabbi Daniel Lapin Show, where I, your rabbi, reveal how the world really works. Thanks for being part of the show, and thank you for all you do in order to help promote it, because without you doing that, we just wouldn't be able to get the subscribers we have. So if any of you haven't subscribed yet, now would be a great time to do that. Thank you very much indeed. And I was thinking of calling this show Ancient Solutions for Modern Problems. And I think the way to start is I want to ask you to think of 3 things that you could do to horribly harm your life right now. Shall we take turns? Okay, I'll start. Commit a major crime. Your turn. Me, betray your marriage. You got something? I'm giving you a moment to pick it up. Okay, pick up and move across the country without telling anybody at all. What else? How about behave promiscuously, contract a disease, drive recklessly and crash your car spectacularly? You have one? You see, it's not that hard to think of these things. Start drinking alcohol heavily or taking drugs regularly. That's another one. Or how about quit your job without any planning for an alternative landing site? Start gossiping extensively about your friends to the other friends. Become estranged from your family. Start overeating and quit exercising, and so on and so forth. It's not hard, right? Now, here's the hard part. Try and think of 3 things you could do right now to dramatically improve your life. Well, one of them, of course, is to subscribe to the Rabbi Daniel Lapin Show on whatever platform you listen to it or watch it, so that'd be good. Another thing is that you could take a look at the Gathering Storm video course on the website, rabbidaniellapin.com. And what you'll see in the Gathering Storm program is the remarkable similarity between social and political and economic conditions right now and the conditions that ancient Jewish wisdom shows the Bible revealing in the days preceding Noah's flood. And then finally, you could take a look at a new book that Susan and I have just finished. It's called The Holistic You. And it's the subtitle is Integrating the Various Aspects of Your Life, your finances, your family, your faith, your fitness, and your friendships, how all of that ties together. And that's a little bit of what we're talking about today as well. So what else can you do that would dramatically improve your life? Well, looking at the book, The Holistic You, which we think of as a comprehensive life guide, how to integrate your 5 F's, your finance, your family, your fitness, your faith, and your friendships, you'll notice that every one of the destructive actions we discussed a few minutes ago fell into one of these 5 categories. For instance, gossiping, well, that's harming friendships. Betraying your marriage, well, that's family. Using alcohol or drugs, your physical fitness. Quitting your job without an alternative plan, finances. But there is a 5th F called faith. And out of all the things we listed, of the things that you could damage your life by doing, I didn't see any one of them that fitted into the category of faith. So I can easily see how to damage my life by ignoring or sabotaging my family life, by undermining my friendships and social life, by imploding my financial life, by shattering my fitness or health. But how on earth do I imperil my life by obliterating my faith, especially if I don't have a particularly vibrant faith life to begin with? May I explain? Your life is a very, very complex system. So complex that in the vast storehouse of human knowledge, there is no answer to how life started. That's right, no answer at all. There is an answer to how the first form of life became the second, and how, say, crocodiles turned into racehorses. That is evolutionary biology through random mutation and natural selection. But there is no answer, not even a bad one, for how a world of minerals like granite and iron ore and organic material like wheat and oak trees turned into a puppy or a goldfish. Please don't think it's a simple problem. If you think I'm exaggerating and you research it yourself, which you should do, you'll come across the Miller-Urey experiment of 1953. And that was where Professors Miller and Urey took a mixture of what they thought was a fair approximation of what the primordial soup might have looked like millions or billions of years ago. And then they ran electric sparks through it in order to simulate lightning. And the goal was to see if anything lifelike emerged from that. And while they were able to find a few amino acid molecules, that's about it. There was nothing else, and that in itself means nothing, because what the Miller-Urey experiments did not do is produce even one living cell, let alone an organism. If you're skeptical about this, there is only one important question to ask. And, I much prefer using our own cognitive processes to depending on experts and studies and scientists' revelations. And fortunately, here is something we can think this through ourselves. And that is to ask this basic important question. If the Miller-Urey experiment produced any sign of life at all, even a minuscule, microscopic, tiny piece of evidence for abiotic production of life, wouldn't you have thought it would have been followed up with in the past 70 years? Think about the other things that happened in 1953. The double helix structure of deoxyribonucleic acid was discovered. That's the molecule containing the genetic instructions for the development of all living organisms. Now, that was just the start. That work led to decades and decades of genome research, and even things like DNA evidence used in forensic investigation. All of that came out of that discovery in 1953. They didn't just do that and stop, because each thing led to something else that was exciting, because each result was significant. But the Miller-Urey experiment, why aren't they continuing, trying to mix compounds with lightning or electric sparks in order to get something? Because it just didn't reveal anything at all. Think, and again in 1953, the computing genius Alan Turing wrote computer programs for computers that didn't yet exist, because there were no transistors yet. The transistor, I think, appeared for the very first time in 1948, but in 1953, when Alan Turing was working on this, there wasn't anything yet that could manipulate yes-no decisions with electronic circuits quickly enough. But he realized that it would come, and he even speculated on what it would look like, and he proceeded to write computer codes as if the computers existed, and then when they executed the codes by manually working through the program, it worked. That's how good he was. And he died in 1954, a year later, but his work continued after he died. And that resulted in supercomputers that were built on his work, even quantum computing, because what Alan Turing did in 1953 was so astounding that people were motivated to continue building on it. It was so exciting. Here's another thing. Jonas Salk produced his first polio vaccine in 1953. For the next 40 years, work continued frantically on ever more effective polio vaccines until the disease was all but eradicated by about 1995. There are many, many more examples of breakthrough work done in 1953 that continue to expand and improve on the original work. Yet, the Miller-Urey experiments came to a dead halt. No work continued because there were no meaningful or worthwhile results to continue building on. Be clear on this, happy warriors. Nobody on planet Earth has any materialistic explanation, theory, or possible avenue to understand how life arrived on planet Earth. Now, I did say materialistic explanation because obviously I do have an understanding of how life arrived on planet Earth. But that is how complex life is. And your life is not just a cell or even a collection of cells. Your life is a massive matrix of intersecting structures having to do with your health, your relationships with different classifications of people and with things and with knowledge and with a vast intangible reality, the infinite world of the spiritual. And one of the reasons that we wrote The Holistic You is to help readers understand just how all these intersecting structures that make up your life impact and influence one another. For a brief example of this, ask yourself, does looking after your health, your fitness, impact you socially? I think you'd probably respond, of course. If you feel good about yourself, you'll be more outgoing, right? Look, have you noticed that people who are self-conscious about the condition of their teeth do not smile much? Perfectly natural, perfectly normal. They do not want to expose and draw attention to the part of themselves, their teeth, that they think looks awful. That right there is a great reason to go to a good dentist. It'll make you smile more and thereby connect more easily with other people. And that's why many dentists use the advertisement of improve your smile, get a great smile, because you are going to show your teeth if you smile. And so if you're self-conscious about your teeth, you don't smile, that handicaps your building relationships. It inhibits your friendships. If you're a bit overweight, or you tend to be short of breath all the time whenever you do anything active, that too will inhibit your socializing, right? And from the other side, other people, yes, even you and I, tend to be a bit awkward around people with health problems. Yes, our sympathies are aroused by those in bad health, for sure. But that is different from wanting to befriend them or to spend a lot of time with them. You see, there is a spectrum line that runs from vibrancy and full of life at one end, all the way to the darkness of death at the other. We are all attracted to vibrancy and exuberantly evident life force and good looks, and we are all a little repelled by death. Again, perfectly natural and perfectly normal. The closer we are to possessing the aura of a flamboyant life force, the more attractive we are to others. So yes, I think we agree. Fitness leads to friendship, generally speaking. Continuing this theme, does having more friends, not Facebook friends, But people who will say, return your phone call or your email within 24 hours, does having many of those friends lead to financial improvement? Unquestionably. The more people who know you, like you, and trust you, the more your ability and your potential to serve others and to thereby profit. All you have to do is figure out how best to serve all those people who know you, like you, and trust you. Does having many friends and healthy finances help you on your F for family as well? Well, there are two cases to analyze, right? One is if you're married, the other is if you're single. My assumption is that most single people are smart enough to want to avoid going through life alone and wish to be married. There are exceptions, for instance, folks who are widowed or divorced, who have children, and people who are just comfortable with being alone. But ordinarily, most single people would like to find somebody special with whom to build a glorious marriage and family. So, back to analyzing whether having friends and finances helps in both our two cases. Again, two possible cases. You're married and you're male, and you're female. Let's start off with male. Having or making more money than your wife is phenomenally important for your marriage. Being the financial giver, being the financial bearer of financial responsibility in a marriage is wonderful for a man and for the marriage. And you know what else? The woman is happier too than when she feels that she bears considerable financial burden. And I know this is very hard, and I know that for many, many families and for many couples, it doesn't work that way. And it's not my intention to make anyone feel bad, but it is my intention to tell you how the world really works. And that means I have to tell you the truth. So the next example, you're married and you're female. If financial abundance is yours personally and separately from community property, you should be aware of the peril it poses to your marriage. It can be handled, but you must know exactly what you are doing. If the financial abundance is the marriage's, in other words, community property, all is wonderful. Now, how about if you're single? Always two cases, right? Single male and single female, boys and girls. Now, here a word of warning. We constantly read things like, well, yes, maybe that was true in our grandparents' day. Maybe that was true in 1950. But today we know better. Today we have feminism, or today we have progress, or today we have scientific knowledge. Now, if all of this is in the context of something scientific, anything to do with a physical, material world, it might be true. However, in anything having to do with family, with male-female interaction, with money, yes, pretty much everything that is really important in your life. It's like saying about the problems of, say, not getting along with your sister. Well, today it's different from our grandparents' day. We now have food coloring and popcorn. Look, sibling discord presented similar problems to your parents as it does to us. We may have better phones and cars, but food coloring and popcorn is as relevant as feminism and scientific knowledge and progress when it comes to family relationships. They haven't changed. And that is why I talk of offering you ancient solutions to modern problems. I would never offer ancient solutions to retaining radioactive exposure in a nuclear electricity generating plant. I would never offer ancient solutions to repairing the fuel injection system in your 2024 model car. I will never offer ancient solutions to the challenge of cooking on a gas range that has a powerful air conditioning duct blowing down cold air on it. But when it comes to those things that never change, our relationships with our families, and that includes intimate physical relationships as well, obviously, our relationship to money, to friends, to our physical fitness, and finally to our relationship with God, newer is not better. Ancient solutions are what are needed to the modern problems of creating, maintaining, and growing those relationships. Modern life has not proven so successful at any of those aspects of life, right? Family life guided by modernity, which means basically the elite university academic world, has been a dreadful fiasco. I don't have to describe what it's done to finances. Just see what the university-educated elite has done with the economy, so distorting the miracle of the marketplace so as to drive virtually all American manufacturing out of the country, mostly to Asia, and so mismanaging a primary responsibility of government so as to welcome the inflation that is ruining the finances of an entire nation. What has a university culture influence done to friendship? The Western world suffers from a notorious epidemic of loneliness. People of all ages have disconnected from other people. No, when I speak of the need for ancient solutions to modern problems, I speak the truth. Heaven knows, modern solutions to ancient problems really has not worked out that well for anybody, has it? There are very few aspects of modern life that have not been shaped by the university culture. Now, President Biden is the 46th president. About 13 presidents have had no university education. Every president since 1953 has had a university degree. Would anyone say that since 1953, American presidents have all been much wiser than they used to be? Since 1953, American presidents have made far fewer mistakes because they've been university educated. Woodrow Wilson became the president of a university. He was so dedicated to the university system. He gave us the United Nations, by the way. Universities have succeeded in brainwashing people that a 4-year degree is necessary to successfully do jobs like customer service or teaching elementary and nursery school. The Wall Street Journal and NORC did a poll that they did together, and NORC is at the University of Chicago, I think. They find that 56% of Americans agree with the statement, a 4-year college education is not worth the cost because people often graduate without any specific job skills as well as with a large amount of debt to pay off. Universities, in collusion with government, have made themselves indispensable by persuading employers to request a degree with any job application. This is like the grocery stores of the country colluding to make people prove they've eaten an apple every morning before they are allowed onto any form of transport, say. To compel people to have university degrees for jobs for which you just don't need one. It's very smart. It's created one of the most massive transfers of wealth in the history of the United States of America. I mean, I think you know what college professors earn, extravagantly inflated salaries. College administrators. The college president who was just fired from the University of Harvard for plagiarism and various low-level behavior. She, as an administrator, she keeps her administrative job. She's no longer president. She's still making $900,000 a year, just to give you an idea. Anyone making $900,000 a year there? I hope some of you are, but not many, I don't think. Not only do universities have the monopoly as gatekeepers to almost every aspect of the economy, they use their power to indoctrinate and propagandize a worldview that yet further is self-serving, empowers the institution of the university. And what happens is that so many university graduates are embedded in so many activities, occupations, professions, so embedded in government, so embedded in bureaucracy, that they themselves reinforce that and retain their relationships with their alma maters. And they go to university events, and it all becomes a self-perpetuating, powerful, perhaps the most powerful, culture-shaping force in society. If we talk about degrees that actually will allow you to enter a high-paying occupation, my comments need to be modified. But precious few of those, believe me. Professional schools for law, for dentistry, for medicine, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that's about it. Teachers' training colleges are a big joke. I mean, any mother can teach her child from preschool, from toddler, from kindergarten, all the way through, certainly all the way through 8th grade. For sure, any mom can do that. What is the underlying schematic that makes universities work? By the way, the proof of what I just said is the homeschooling community. About 2 million American children homeschooling. That's right, and doing amazingly well. What is the underlying schematic that makes universities work? In other words, let me give you an example. For business, it's making a profit, right? For medicine, it is or it should be healing people. For aircraft manufacturers and for airlines, it is rapid, safe, economic transport. But what is it for universities? Well, of course, if you ask the universities, they would argue education. But you see, that is not defined at all. What is it really? Try define education, and you'll see it's not that easy. How do you define education? And obviously, claiming to be advancing education has imposed no restrictions at all on what universities can do. So you see that they are in no way held back by any arbitrary or formal definition of providing education. They do whatever they like. So, you see, making a profit is easy to define. And what's more important, it's easy to measure. Healing people, easy to define and easy to create metrics. We do it all the time. Building an airplane or running an airline, very easy to define success. Very easy to measure. But how about education? How would you define it? And it's impossible to measure, partially because education bureaucrats want no definition on the basic role of education, whether at university or at GICs. You know what a GIC is, right? A government indoctrination camp. Used to be called public school. So, of course, the bureaucrats that run education, they want no definition of education. They certainly want no way of measuring it, because anything like that would of necessity restrict their lust for control and power and changing students' minds, indoctrination, impacting the culture. It's very seductive, you know. They also resist measurement, which is why so many schools now have eliminated examinations. Have you noticed that? Have you ever wondered why? Because even examinations in some of the silly things they teach in school today would at least provide some measure of objective measure, and they want no measure at all of what they're doing. They want no supervision, no oversight. Educators regard themselves as a special category of people who have the responsibility to improve the culture and change society. And you do that as Lenin understood in the very early days of the Bolshevik Revolution, that if you have control of the children, you'll have control of society very quickly. So what is the purpose of universities? Isn't there one? Sure there is. I'll tell you. It is to provide and inculcate a secular, materialistic worldview, thereby replacing the traditional God-centric worldview. Remember I was talking about the origin of life? Well, I told you I have an origin of life explanation. God created life and put it on the planet. That doesn't explain exactly how it's done, but why would it? And if you reject that, then you've got to come up with something else, and nobody has. And so universities exist to create a secular materialistic society. They exist as the high priests of a new secular materialistic religion, a belief system, which they hope to utterly eliminate a traditional God-centric worldview, way of thinking. Listen to one of the most wonderfully honest university academics explaining it better than I just did. It's by Richard Lewontin, who was a fascinating university professor. He just died in 2021, just a few years ago. He was an evolutionary biologist, and he was a self-proclaimed atheist. And what he said is that our willingness to accept scientific claims that are against common sense is the key to an understanding of the real struggle between science and the supernatural. We take the side of science in spite of the patent absurdity of some of its constructs, in spite of its failing to fulfill its many extravagant promises about health and life, in spite of the tolerance of the scientific community for unsubstantiated just-so stories. Because we have a prior commitment, says Richard Lewontin, a commitment to materialism. It's not that the methods and institutions of science somehow compel us to accept a material explanation of the phenomenal world, but on the contrary, we are forced by our a priori adherence to material causes to create an apparatus of investigation and a set of concepts that produce material explanations, no matter how counterintuitive, no matter how mystifying to the uninitiated. Moreover, that materialism is absolute, for we cannot allow a divine foot into the door. Let me explain. There are only two ways to answer perhaps life's three most basic, compelling, and existential questions. Where are we from? Where are we going to? And what are we supposed to do in between coming and going? Each question can only be answered in two ways. Where from? Either we are on this planet because of a lengthy process of unaided materialistic evolution that converted primitive protoplasm into plumbers and proctologists. Or alternatively, God created us in his image and put us on the planet. There is no other alternative. It's one of those two. And you have to decide, because there is no evidence for either. There is a belief system called the Judeo-Christian Bible-based belief system, which has been the foundation of Western civilization for 2,000 years, and which has created a civilization to which the rest of the world aims to aspire to, aims to immigrate to, aims to become like. You got to choose. There's a belief system that is a Judeo-Christian Bible-based belief system, or alternatively, there is a secular materialistic belief system, and it is mediated by the university as the high church of secular materialism. Where are we ending up? Well, either when we die and that's the end of it, we end up with worms and rot, or we end up in an eternal spiritual life for which this life was only a preparation. You got to decide, because the kind of life you live is completely different depending on how you answer that question. Third question, what am I supposed to be doing in between coming and going? Well, either hedonism or alternatively connecting with God. Either hedonism or connect with God. Either live, eat, drink, and be merry because we only go around once, or we live life as closely as possible to His design. It's your choice, but there are only two choices. There are many other similar questions that can be answered in two different ways. Either answered by evolutionary biology or by God-centric creation. There's no proof for either way. There really isn't. Why do women prefer higher status men? Well, evolutionary biology says in order to acquire the resources to ensure the best chance of survival for their offspring, to protect their genetic future. Or a God-centric creation view of why women prefer higher status men. And that view is that it is in order to motivate and stimulate and drive men to achieve everything necessary in order to master the world, to conquer the world, as God asks Adam to do in chapter 1 of Genesis. The wonderful feminist Camille Paglia, who is a professor in Philadelphia, famously said that if there were no men in the world, women would still be living in grass huts. But what she didn't add is that if there were no women in the world, men would probably also be living in grass huts or in caves, because it is women that motivate us to achieve and to accomplish the things necessary to make the world what God expected us to make it. And so, two explanations. Why do fetuses all start off as female? Well, evolutionary biology has an explanation of, the XY chromosomes, the XX chromosomes, and everything starts off. And, it may be a satisfactory to you or unsatisfactory explanation, but evolutionary biology does take a shot at explaining why fetuses all start off as female. The God-centric creation view of that men need a jolt of energy in order to become men. Otherwise, they will be what the former governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger, used to say, girly men. They were just girly men. So, for men to be men, whether it's in utero, where a jolt of testosterone begins the process of creating a male, and yes, it did start off as a female, that's why men have nipples. which have no function whatsoever, because they were already in place when at about 6 or 7 weeks the testosterone kicks in and starts producing male fetuses, provided there were an XY sperm fertilized the XX egg. And so, yeah, that tells us that raising boys is harder than raising girls in certain ways, that fathers particularly are needed to provide an ongoing jolt of energy in order for a man to result. You want to raise a man? Very hard, takes energy. And that would be the alternative explanation. In other words, part of ancient Jewish wisdom is that God created the world in such a way that its physicality was an echo of its spirituality. And so even the fact that female reproductive organs are largely hidden in a modest kind of way, if I can use that loaded word, because it's a very feminine word, and the reproductive organs of men are very visible, arrogant jutting of masculinity. That reflects a difference between men and women. And so all of this integrates. I would never say that evolutionary biology has it all wrong and there's no reality to certain biological truths. Of course there are, but that's not all there is to it. I might ask again, why is the proportion of Earth's surface that is covered by ocean is almost identical to the proportion of water in a human body? Why would there be that coincidence? And again, I don't know a secular materialistic answer for that, but I do know the spiritual answer. Why do even identical twins who have the same DNA end up with different fingerprints? Evolutionary biology has to say, well, there's got to be an explanation, because as Professor Richard Lewontin said, we do not admit a deity into the door. It's not going to happen. There has to be, no matter how improbable, you've got to come up with a secular materialistic explanation. So where do identical twins who have identical DNA, where does the information come from for totally different fingerprints? Well, we've got to postulate the existence of epigenetics, and they kick in, they kick out. That's what must do it, right? Maybe, but maybe not. What is the spiritual explanation? The spiritual explanation is that human creativity is godly. When it says in the Bible, God created man in his image, it means with the ability to create, right? To be able to take sand from the desert and reduce that to silicon and convert that to integrated circuits and transistors and produce what the computer revolution has produced, all because we're able to take sand and be creative with it, right? Giraffes do not do that. That is a part of God in each and every one of us. And so, because God is unique, the fingers, which are the symbols of our creativity, right? We even use phrases, particularly in English poetry, like the work of his hands. But because it's your hands and your fingers that create and do things. And so obviously, that area in which we are most like God, we must also be God-like in the sense of being unique. Each and every one of us, absolutely different from everyone else. And so on and so forth. It's not that I reject the science. I really don't. I love learning about science and technology and engineering. I worked as an electrical engineer for a number of years, but I don't think that science and technology is all there is. In fact, I know it is not all there is. I know that we live in a reality that is part physical and part spiritual. For that reason, Proverbs, the Bible book of Proverbs, chapter 9, verse 10 reads, "Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A secular materialistic worldview is of necessity inaccurate." Because so much of reality is spiritual, that a secular, materialistic worldview is not going to jibe with reality. It's going to be wrong. And this is why the F of faith is part of the 5F program we teach in our book, The Holistic You. One cannot simply ignore the spiritual part of life. It is vital for understanding reality and for peak success to be achieved in each of the other 4 F's, finance, family, fitness, and friendship. You've got to be aware of the spiritual reality. This is the entire problem of a university-centric society. It is inaccurate. It promotes a worldview that is at odds with reality. For that reason, I question whether most people should go to university. If a man becomes an aircraft mechanic or a construction rigger, he has many advantages. He doesn't have debt. He's making money from the get-go. He doesn't feel that he's wasted 4 years of his life. He hasn't extended his adolescence. He's become a man. If a woman becomes an executive assistant or a flight attendant or a dental hygienist or a sales representative, etc., or any one of many other things, instead of wasting 4 years at university, she's probably better off in a lot of different ways, apart from having no debt. But I'll tell you where the biggest advantage of all is. The biggest advantage of all is marriage. Because most women want to have a beautiful marriage and to have children and to raise those children in a beautiful family. Most women assume that it just happens. It just happens. Time goes by, and in the same way that you reach puberty, you'll reach marriage. It just happens. But it isn't like that. Marriage is a decision. You know why God made it that way? Because nobody should ever have to say, I just found myself married. Or have you heard people usually who've been engaged in adultery, they say, one thing led to another, and there you are, No, marriage isn't a result of just one thing leading to another. It's only the result of taking the proper, necessary actions. And for women, going to a 4-year university program is not advantageous for achieving marriage and family. I'll tell you why that is. This is difficult stuff, and I know that many people are not going to be happy to hear this. But look, when women spend a 4-year portion of their life at a college, normally what then happens is they get indoctrinated by university thinking on feminism and the irrelevancy of family. And they continue, they've got to get their career going. And you'll hear young women saying this all the time. Women are, 22, 23, they've got a degree. Now they've got to start working to pay off their student loan and to start their career. Now's not the time for marriage. And pretty soon they're 28 and they're 29, and all of a sudden they're looking to be married. But here is the problem. It's a very real problem. The problem is that at that point, they want to marry a man who has even more university education than they do. And that means a man who's older than them, a man who's been involved in his profession and engaged in his earning for a while. And so they're looking for a guy in his 30s. And here's the big problem. Guys in their 30s do not have to marry girls who are 28. They can marry girls who are 22 or 23. Yeah, they really can. But wait a sec, girls who are 22 or 23 are still at university? No. Many, many, many smart guys who are 31 and 32 and 33 are looking to marry girls who are not engaged in their careers, girls who are not pursuing the dream of careers and professions. It would be nice if I could tell you that every girl who gets a 4-year degree finds herself on the fast track to the executive suite running a big important company. Doesn't work that way. And you only have to take a look at the blogs online to see the large number of young women who've got their degrees and finding themselves in menial jobs for which they never needed a degree in the first place. They would be much further ahead had they spent those 4 years training to be a flight attendant or executive assistant. There are many, many, many other things as well. I'm just latching onto those. But they'd be much further ahead. And now they're 4-year degree, they got debt, and they're wondering why they're working, early in the morning to late at night at some boring office job or factory job or whatever it is. They certainly realize late that they're certainly not doing anything that has anything to do with their field of study in which they got their degree. I've spoken to girls who we're doing a major in communication. Oh, why? Because I want to do television news. Really? That's like a kid kicking a ball around the street, and you say to him, "What are you doing?" "I want to become a professional footballer in the National Football League." Yeah, the odds are not with you. Right? It just is. It's not. And so the fact is that most smart guys are not looking to marry girls who are female equivalents of themselves. They're not looking to marry ambitious, hard-driven, hard-working, career-focused girls. That's not what we're looking for, guys. Ladies, we're not. We're looking for cute girls who are sweet and gentle and kind and who are fun to talk to. That's what we're looking for. And if you haven't been to college, that's great. It means you've had less feminist indoctrination. That's wonderful. And I want nothing better than to have the privilege of supporting and carrying the financial burden for a wife like that, who will then build me a home and a family that will be the joy of my life. That's kind of where it's at, completely contrary to the current culture, but I wanted to at least give you a glimpse into the incredible damage that a university-centric culture has inflicted on a society. That's how it is, and as always, there's so much more, but we will, in weeks ahead, take this a whole lot further. But meanwhile, by all means, write, leave comments, let me know what you're thinking. If you become a happy warrior, you can do that at wehappywarriors.com or at the RabbiDanielLapin.com website. Become a happy warrior, and let's have a conversation about some of these things. You're raising daughters? It's a huge question mark. You've got girls that you're raising. Do you push them to become doctors or lawyers? Do you push them to become MBAs and major executives in advertising, knowing that they'll always be able to make a living, but on the other hand, knowing that their likelihood of getting married has just plummeted? That's the truth. It's a frightening choice that parents have to make. There are very frightening choices with boys as well. But I spoke more about boys in the last week's show. Today, I'm focusing more on girls, and it's a very, very difficult choice. We will continue the topic, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, please do that for me. If you haven't yet got yourself a copy of The Holistic You, then you absolutely should do that. And just for real fun, if you and your best friend would like to spend an evening doing something really interesting, listen to the program. It's on the website at rabbidaniellapin.com. It's called The Gathering Storm, and it's the ancient Jewish wisdom lens on the period leading up to Noah's flood. It'll blow your mind, because you're going to look around you and say there's nothing new under the sun. We're watching the destruction of society going on right now. And so it's called The Gathering Storm, and you will find it at rabbidaniellapin.com. So until next week, everybody, onwards and upwards, right? Please make wonderful progress in each of your 5 F's. Make progress in your families and your finances, your friendships, your physical fitness, and your faith. I'm Rabbi Daniel Lapin. God bless.